Well, it's been a while since I've talked about Kingdom Hearts on the channel, a whole year in fact. And that honestly feels like far too long of a wait for a game this important to me. Hell, back in my game journalist days, Kingdom Hearts and Square Enix in general were my second most common topic, with Dark Souls and From Software definitely being the top priority to write about. So it feels like it's time to return to form. Although, this time, instead of sitting here and defending the flawed masterpiece that is Kingdom Hearts 3, I'd like to get back to basics, and head on through the original Kingdom Hearts. Or Kingdom Hearts 1, as it has been retroactively named. Of course, a standard run of the game won't be quite interesting enough to make a whole video on, so how can I mix things up a bit? Ooh, I know, let's play Kingdom Hearts 2 at the same time. And in fact, while we're at it, let's link the two games together and turn this whole adventure into a treasure hunt across both worlds. That's right, we're doing an Archipelago Randomizer run, combining Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 into a single experience. And for those of you who have no idea what any of those words mean, I'll explain in a second. For now, I'll start the game the same way I always do, by choosing the path of the warrior and giving up the path of the mystic. And then, we're directly in Traverse Town. That's strange. We should still be in the Station of Awakening. Well, as Pluto wakes us up, let's pick up a few items to see exactly what we're dealing with. Like the Mithril Shard in the accessory shop. That's Leaf Bracer. That shouldn't even be in a chest. Okay, so what's actually going on here? Well, this is what the Archipelago Randomizer is. For plenty of Kingdom Hearts fans that have seen what the modding community has been up to in the last few years, a randomizer isn't exactly a surprise. Although most folks would probably be more aware of the Kingdom Hearts 2 rando, not for the original game. Let's break down what an archipelago is. An archipelago is an island collection in lakes, rivers, or even the ocean that can be grouped together into a single chain of... Wait, that's not the archipelago we're talking about? Oh, right, the nerdy one. So, this is a massive community project that connects a ton of different games into a multi-world randomizer, all with flexible settings and whatnot. Overall, at the time of this recording, the project boasts a hearty 71 supported games, with even more currently being beta tested by the modders, including, but not limited to, Hades, Elden Ring, Dark Souls 1, and even some long shots like Resident Evil 2 Remake. It's honestly an incredible project supported entirely by the passion of the modding community, and I love it. Link to the Archi supported games page below. Go check it out. An awesome community of awesome gamers and incredibly talented programmers. Anyway, the way this connects to what I'm doing here, picking up this item from slapping the fan in the item shop will showcase the multi-world aspect of this randomizer. See that? The secret answer report? Yeah, that's for Kingdom Hearts 2. And it will appear in that game once I open it up and start playing as future Sora. Think of it as a little gift from his past self. That's right, if Xehanort can canonically time travel around and retcon everything, then so can I. So, for now, we head through the main progression of Traverse Town, fighting a few Heartless in District 2 and 3, as well as beating Leon when he attacks us outside of the accessory shop. A few cutscenes with hallucinating Kairi and some suggestive conversation from Yuffie later, and we get full reign of the hotel rooms for some extra checks. This then gives us an odd little item, Battlefields of War. Again, nothing unfamiliar to those keeping up with the Kingdom Hearts 2 rando scene, but for those unaware, this is a progression item specific to the randomizer that grants access to the Olympus Coliseum's first visit. A second will be required for the second visit, which it appears we already had. But this is a mid to late game level area. So we'll be mostly doing first visits once we actually get over to Kingdom Hearts 2. We also find some good parts of the Kingdom Hearts 2 toolkit here, like Slide Dash and Chicken Little. These are a gap closer and a powerful summon, respectively. Slide Dash will definitely be getting used more, but Chicken Little has enough niche uses to be worth mentioning. Well, with Traverse Town finished, we can get to our gummy ship and see what other worlds are currently available. Unlike the base game, we can't simply fly around space until we land on a planet we like. We're given one extra world outside of Traverse Town to explore. And we've got to hope we find progression to other areas in those places if we want to keep our Kingdom Hearts 1 adventure going. For now, though, we need to make our way through Agrabah. And as we start opening every chest in sight, we manage to find our first lucky emblem. These will be the key to beating Kingdom Hearts 2 when that time comes. For the settings I currently have in place, there are 30 lucky emblems scattered around throughout both games, and I'll need to find at least 20 of them in order to enter Go Mode for Kingdom Hearts 2. Go Mode being the conditions being met to start the final fights and beat the game. There are 2 more items that I'll need on top of the lucky emblems for the settings that I'm running with, but I'll cover those when we get there. For Kingdom Hearts 1, I decided to track my total number of Ansem's reports. In this case, I'd need 4 in order to enter End of the World, the final world of the game, and 7 in order to access the final door and complete the game. As an additional benefit, beating either game then releases everything that is currently being held in that game, essentially guaranteeing some extra progression. In the meantime, I've been fighting the pot centipede, and this goes very poorly. Still, I clutch it out and get some helpful heals from Donald and Goofy to keep me in the fight, and we can move on to the Cave of Wonders. The cave entrance mini-boss is fine. I've definitely had worse fights against this guy. Inside, we get our glide and access to Halloween Town and Neverland. But first, we've got the 2 separate Jafar fights. They're simple. Now's probably a good time to mention that most fights will probably be pretty easy for most of this run, because I'm only playing on standard difficulty. And the settings for this run means that most non-essential checks will most likely be stat increases. So even though I'm several levels below what I should be against Jafar, my stats are fairly higher than what they should be at this point in the game. And this fight winds up showcasing that the challenge for a lot of this run is a lot less fighting really difficult bosses in places that I shouldn't be or out of order, and more, can I even find the items in order to progress? And so Iago doesn't even get the chance to lazily drop the lamp before completely crumbling and letting us seal this evil genie away and move on to bigger and brighter things. Although in this case, that means taking a quick trip back to Traverse Town. Since we'd gotten some movement tech while in Agrabah, namely a glide and a high jump, we've now got access to a few other areas. Also, the rando seems to fast-forward Traverse Town into the second visit state, with the ladder behind the Gizmo shop already being there, letting us into the upper floors of the second and third districts. There are a few items to pick up here, most notable among the bunch being this torn page. Once we have Magician's Study access, we can start visiting 100 Acre Wood and do some of the Winnie the Pooh minigames. I love those, they're so nice. For now though, this quick detour is over and it's time to progress on that vanilla pathing. Depending on how much you might enjoy Atlantica, that is. Because we're skipping right from Agrabah to Halloween Town. And if I see any of you in the comments thinking about mentioning Monstro, I will Anyway, Nightmare Before Christmas World, my favorite place in most of the Kingdom Hearts series, because I adore the movie it's based on. What exactly can we do here? Well, we can gather up some extra checks, including some we shouldn't be able to get to right now, and unlock Wonderland. Honestly, I thought I'd be stuck a lot faster than this, but after picking up Neverland, Wonderland, and this place, it looks like nothing can stop my ongoing progress. Sally didn't give me the forget-me-not. I'm sure that won't be a huge problem. Right? Oh, and Finkelstein won't continue the path without that specific item in my inventory. Well, I guess we're hard locked on Halloween Town until we can find that. Alright, in that case, we can go check out the Wonderland we unlocked. That'll be plenty easy. Also, with Glide unlocked, we can get to pretty much every check in the area. With all the chests, anyway. And boy, is it a treasure trove of progression unlocks here. Like the Disney Castle key for Kingdom Hearts 2. This will give us access to the Disney Castle once I swap over to that game. I also found the Once More for good measure, which will let Sora withstand a combo that would otherwise kill him. An obviously broken, powerful ability for boss fights, and especially in the later parts of the game. However, among all of those checks, none of them are the footprints we need to give to the Queen in order to advance. So, we're locked again. You know, after finishing Traverse Town and Agrabah so quickly, I honestly didn't expect there to be so many item requirements in order to progress. But I guess that's what makes the archipelago interesting. As for this playthrough, that means we're heading to Neverland, I guess. Boy, forget what I said earlier about this run being even remotely vanilla. This one is even shorter than Wonderland 2. This one walls us before we can even fight Shadow Sora, and we don't get nearly as many checks. Fortunately, we start with the ability to fly and get some decent pieces of progress, like the ability to access White Trinities. Strange to get that one as the first Trinity for the run, but that's rando for you. It also gives us access to a few more checks. Do we get anything good? Kinda. We get Naminé's sketches from exploring Wonderland more thoroughly, and Dumbo from the Waterway in Traverse Town, but we never even get to either of the points where he'd be useful for any skips, so that'll go in the back pocket and be forgotten immediately. Alright, with those last few checks hunted down, we need to start messing with everyone's heads and start traveling through time, which is already canon to Kingdom Hearts, so, you know, this is exactly how Square Enix intended for us to play their game. So, Kingdom Hearts 2, what we doing here? Well, first we take the Path of the Warrior, because obvi, and then we get to enter the Garden of Assemblage. Normally the location in Final Mix where the data battles can be challenged. This area acts as our hub for the Kingdom Hearts 2 randomizer. Each of the doors lines up with a world, and the mod even changes the images on the doors to match the new locations they'll take us to. First up, however, is 100 Acre Wood. Since we don't need access to Merlin's place specifically to go here, this location can give us a decent number of checks right off the bat. While I showcase what some of the checks were, and let the minigames play out, this seems like a good time to go over some of the lingo I've been using so regularly. For anyone not familiar with randomizers, Kingdom Hearts or otherwise, I've mentioned a few things like checks, progression, and getting hard-locked. Checks are any places where an item, ability, or progression key might be. In the Kingdom Hearts randomizers, this can mean anything from treasure chests to boss rewards to level ups, both for Sora and for his drive forms in Kingdom Hearts 2. In 1, this also includes Donald and Goofy's levels, interestingly enough. Progression keys are the items required in order to progress through certain areas. In the case of Kingdom Hearts 1, this means the initial access to levels, as well as key items like the footprints in Wonderland or the Forget-Me-Not in Halloween Town. These keys can also be abilities that grant access to new locations like High Jump, Glide, or the Green Trinity that locked me out of Progressing Neverland. Then, when it comes to being hard-locked, that's more of a personal choice to use that terminology, as the Archipelago community tends to call this BK mode. This essentially means that I've run through every available check in my own game and can no longer progress until someone else in a different game of the multi-world manages to send me one of the items I need in order to continue. In this specific case, I'm playing with myself, and so all I need to do is hop into the other game and continue playing until I've sent over enough progression keys to let Sora keep going on his journey in that one. Okay, all of that out of the way, we've picked up another lucky emblem and some status upgrades across the two games. Stuff like HP and strength increases for Sora across both points in this convoluted timeline I've created. Also, we get to see exactly how much the modding community seems to hate Kingdom Hearts, since the quality of life updates for the randomizer either speeds up or entirely eliminates most minigames, especially the 100 Acre Wood stuff. You might have also noticed that all gummy missions have been removed from both randos, but I'm the only freak in the world that actually liked those anyway, so I guess I get that one a little more. So, for actual progression, where are we going? Well, unlike Kingdom Hearts 1, we've got options here, including both visits of Olympus Coliseum, the opening segment of The World That Never Was, parts of Simulated Twilight Town, first visit Twilight Town, Disney Castle up until Timeless River, and first visit Hollow Bastion. Some are from Kingdom Hearts 1, others were made available so that I would have somewhere to go without relying entirely on the other game. Again, this is meant to be a multiplayer experience, but I'm a loner. With that grand list to start with, we decide that Disney Castle is the way to go. We grab some junk in the courtyard, then find the scimitar in the library. Not quite as important for endgame as the lucky emblems, but it unlocks our first visit of Agrabah, which also has a decent number of checks right off the bat. So we'll take it. And to progress the whole castle, and also because I wasn't aware that I was locked out of Timeless River at the time, we'll also do the little Approach the Throne Room minigame with Minnie. That's right, it's time for everyone's favorite game show. Push that mouse! Honestly, as much as speedrunners tend to make Sora pound this little mouse into the wall, I think I get why there are so many Sora mini-shippers out there. Not my thing, but consenting adults and all that. Hoping that y'all are AUing Sora to be an adult for those at least. The checks from the encounter are mostly stat upgrades, not really anything too interesting. So we soldier on to our next location. In this case, I go for Hollow Bastion. This time I was aware of there being a requirement for second visit, and therefore more than half of the available checks in the world. But it's still one of the better ones to go for right now. I find the first Ansem report to send to Kingdom Hearts 1, which is nice, progress towards go mode, but otherwise it's fairly uneventful here. Aside from the fact that I almost completely fumbled a Bailey fight, like, they got really close to breaking down that door. It was some sloppy gameplay here, but mostly because I was testing out speedrun strats without having ever done them before. Growing pains and all that. Moving on. Next up is Olympus Coliseum, which is honestly less about the Coliseum in this game and way more about the underworld. And in the underworld, we've actually got a nice set of checks to pick up. On our way as we help Auron bully Hades, run away from Hades because we can't fight him in the underworld, and finally kick Pete's teeth in. Oh right, Pete's here. We missed his introduction before, but he's here now and he's working for Maleficent to, get her a castle? Or maybe recruit more Heartless? It's not very clear in this game what their motivations really are. I hope they get better utilized in future games. Anyway, on the way of doing all of that, we managed to pick up 3 drive forms: Limit, Valor, and Final. Well, we've got a baby seed right here. Combine that with the Wisdom form we already got in Kingdom Hearts 1, and we've got 4 of the 5 drives unlocked right from the start. Which also means we can level each one to 6 and receive all of the checks associated with them. That'll take some time though, and we'll be looking for specific cases to do that. Like beating on Pete for Valor levels, from hitting him a bunch of times. We also get Glide, the one for this game, which means that our movement is currently unreal. To be clear, we did start with a bunch of movement options already available because those were the default settings. If I'm being honest, I probably won't be keeping that setting on in future runs. For now though, we work with these very overpowered tools until we get to the Hydra, and even manage to earn another Ansem report for Kingdom Hearts 1. Moving on, we've got too many worlds to check and not enough time to check them. How about Agrabah? Well, there's a handful of decent checks. Also, this opening fight gives us a decent chance to level up some drive forms. Interestingly enough, it is possible to lose this fight as well, and still progress. Kinda like the similar encounter in Kingdom Hearts 1's Agrabah before getting Aladdin for the first time. That's why I'm getting my teeth kicked in here, to speed up the process. Definitely not because I'm trying to flex on a game I'm way too rusty to do this with. It's all about that speed. That's why I'm sitting here and watching the cutscene afterwards. Real talk for a second, while I'm not exactly a competitive speedrunner, I'm pretty sure my current best time would put me in the top 100. My last couple of adventures in the series have been as a bit of an amateur speedrunner. So let me say that sitting around and actually watching all of the cutscenes for once has been, pretty difficult. My brain has not been enjoying the lack of constant stimulation that comes from the hyper-speed movement in combat. I may need to get myself tested for some stuff. Anyway, after Aladdin is done yapping, no, the irony of my own yapping is not lost on me, we head around town and start collecting. On the way, we pick up another torn page, one from this game, the explosion finisher, also from this game, and finally Master Form, naturally from this game, the one that actually has drive forms. That is every single drive form, by the way. Baby Seed. As for the rest of Agrabah, we get through the Abu minigame pretty quickly. Pushing him from behind helps to move him along a little faster, and surprisingly, it doesn't look like the quality of life in the rando has changed this one too much. This, the worst minigame in all of Kingdom Hearts 2, is the one that survives the chopping block. I will never understand this community. I will always love you all, unconditionally, but never truly understand you wonderful, clever folks. Alright, a quick trip through the Cave of Wonders and a quick kill of the Fire and Ice brothers, and we're out of Agrabah. I should note, by the way, that I'm currently absolutely fighting every possible speedrunning best practice that I usually follow when playing the rando. The main one being to put off boss fights until they are absolutely necessary. While they have the same chance to drop an important item as any other check, the time investment of fighting a boss is significantly more than that of heading to a new location and picking up all of the chests sitting around any given area. As an example, I'll play the Fire and Ice Brothers fight alongside my trip into Pride Lands, which is the next location I visit after Agrabah. And we'll see how many checks I was able to get, minus the cutscenes, in Pride Lands in the same time as it would take me to get a handful of checks from a single boss fight. Future Proc will step in to give the exact numbers once the fight has finished.
It's over. Let's go. Yeah. Somebody come give me strength. Yeah.
Editor Proc in here after the fact to tell you that it's basically 2 checks in Agrabah for that boss fight, in the same time it took me to get about 8 checks in Pride Lands. Kind of including the fact that I'm, not the most familiar with the placement of the chests anymore, because it's been a while since I've been on this game. So for a good player, someone who knows exactly what they're doing, they could probably get every single check in Pride Lands before I finished fighting those Fire and Ice brothers. To be fair on that difference in check density, Pride Lands is the single most check-dense location in the rando. Back when all levels were available from the rip, this was an extremely common initial world to visit during races because the entire list of treasure chests are available on the first visit. As for this specific trip into Pride Lands, we got exactly 1 lucky emblem and our next Ansem report for Kingdom Hearts 1. So, Go mode progress, but not too much in the way of improving our toolkit or unlocking progress into other worlds across either game. Help Hamlet kill Claudius, and we're off again with our meager gains. And it is at this point that I learned how the rando has changed since the last time I'd updated my version of the randomizer. It's been 3 years, by the way. Turns out, while I was feeling good to cheese the Roxas fight early for all of the world that never was checks, I can only grab the first 4 and spend a little time fighting Heartless to level up my wisdom form. Turns out, if I want to get any further, I'll need another item similar to the Battlefield of War or the Scimitar that will let me actually fight Roxas. Which is fine for now, because he's a super tough fight and I actually wanted to fight him legit this time. Partially because I'm only on standard difficulty, but also because it's been a while since I didn't cheese him, and the fight is one of the best additions to the final mix. Next up, we're heading into Simulated Twilight Town, aka the Kingdom Hearts 2's notoriously long prologue. This is mostly an excuse to start leveling up limit form, at least when I do occasionally manage to use Ragnarok correctly. And again, we're going against speedrun best practices because this area is long and slow, and if I had any other option, I'd avoid this place like the plague. Considering that the best thing I get here is aerial dodge off of leveling up the limit form, it's not even a worthwhile venture, and I spend a solid couple hours in here since it's so front-loaded with cutscenes. At this point, I really only got myself to blame for wasting so much time here, and watching Roxas get absolutely tormented by Diz and Riku, who are these people again? Not important. What is important is...
You're lucky. Looks like my summer vacation is... over.
Huh? You okay?
Yeah. Don't know where it came from.
Pull it together.
So I decided to go pretty vanilla again with the first trip to Twilight Town. It's not a long trip, but it gives me an early chance to get some levels in final form against all of the nobodies that attack us outside of the train station. Now is also a good time to mention that the settings I've currently got the game on allows me to level up everything pretty quickly. Sora's base levels, his drive forms, and even the summons are all set to accelerated levels. While it might seem a bit overpowered and like a path toward making the game too easy at first glance, the way the randomizer doles out stat upgrades without the faster leveling already makes for getting pretty strong pretty fast. While I can pick up a strength upgrade in a random chest, and new levels can give me keyblades instead of attribute progression, the leveling system becomes less about getting stronger and more about finding even more checks. So in the long run, the faster leveling only serves to make getting those checks slightly more frequent, rather than getting super strength super fast. Anyway, in Twilight Town, we take Mickey's advice to get on the magic train to nowhere and even find the spare key he left with Yensid. This will unlock Timeless River for us. But first, we need to watch these fairies freak out over a cloak.
My goodness, what's that? Haven't we seen this somewhere before?
Yes, dear. I wonder whose it was.
It's Maleficent's cloak.
No, we mustn't remember her name.
I've already fought her boy Pete and his goons a couple times.
She was...
And it's almost like they don't understand the regular flow of time in this world. You know, the wibbly-wobbly kind. Oh, and while we're here, we also pick up Hollow Bastion and 2 levels of the Gravity spell for Kingdom Hearts 1. Some helpful progress and a decent tool, well, against non-bosses. Well, that was a fruitful trip, and since we've got Disney Castle's second key, we can head into the Timeless River. Yeah, no second visit for this location, so the randomizer instead splits it between the 2 time zones. One good thing about Timeless River, however, is that it is a great place to level up some drive forms. It's only Heartless here, so no final form boosting, and I've already farmed the World That Never Was to max out Wisdom, so we'll be doing most of our Valor form leveling here. And that pays off handsomely, with an extra high jump for Kingdom Hearts 1. Then, as we fight Pete in his pre-villain era, a handful of Heartless, a boat for some reason, and then our modern-day Pete, we also get a hold of the dodge roll for Kingdom Hearts 1, much better than the one in this game. Well, that's a bit of an unfair comparison, because Kingdom Hearts 2's quick run is simply the better movement and dodge ability overall. And finally, another lucky emblem. Any progress is good progress, so we take it. Speaking of progress, while we haven't been able to make much headway in the old Halloween town, we can head into the updated version right now after picking up the Bone Claw in Agrabah. And pretty much right away, this gives us access to Hollow Bastion's second visit, thanks to the membership card and ice cream for Twilight Town. I think. I'm actually not entirely sure if that's the progress item for that place or if it's something else, but I, at the very least, will have further access into Twilight Town soon. Seriously, while we might be hunting for opportunities across Kingdom Hearts 1, the world is our oyster here. Or I suppose the worlds are our oysters. So we are not hunting for places to go, which is nice to keep me playing Kingdom Hearts 2 forever, but wasn't exactly what I was hoping this run would look like when I first set up the Archi. Still, we continue through Halloween Town, help Jack deal with the mischievous trick-or-treaters, and continue picking up boxes on the way. Our last couple of drops are pretty big though, as we find the Blue Trinity for Kingdom Hearts 1 and the Way to the Dawn, which lets us fight through World That Never Was, from Roxas to Saïx. Lots of checks there, but also lots of tough fights. As for now, Oogie is an easy enough fight, and the randomizer has limited his fight to a single phase, because once again, the modding community apparently hates this game and all of its little slowdowns. I mean, there are even speedrun strats for optimizing Oogie's phases, which I would argue would make trying to speed through the rando more fun, either for more general speedruns or for races. But again, not really my place to comment on quality of life fixes. Removing some minor annoyances for the sake of brevity is fine, as long as entire sections of boss fights aren't completely thrown out the window. So what's next? Well, a quick visit into 100 Acre Wood with the torn pages we've collected so far can get us a lucky emblem. Then we head into Hollow Bastion's second visit, one of the best parts in Kingdom Hearts 2, and honestly one of the most hyped sections of the entire series. As much as I love naval combat in Kingdom Hearts 3, or even the entirety of the deck building in the handheld era of the series, nothing has quite managed to top the encounter coming up here, from a spectacle standpoint at least. But first, we need to fight Demyx. This right here is why this test run of Archi has the settings it does, namely, the lack of critical mode, because I have literally lost sleep from the Demyx fight at that difficulty. That man haunted my nightmares the first time I went for the Platinum in the Final Mix re-release on PS3. I fought him since and have incorporated some speedrun strats into the encounter now, but as I mentioned before, I am nowhere near the top as far as speedrunner competency goes. Still, with Demyx down, we can now enter the Final Fantasy Heroes Gauntlet, an absolutely hype moment made even better by getting capped off by Goofy coming back to life. Oh yeah, he died a little, but it's fine, he walked it off. And now we get to enter the 1000 Heartless fight. Is it as awesome as the initial trailers back in 2004 made it look? Technically no, since we didn't actually get those two behemoths in the fight in the final version, but still an incredible encounter. My absolute favorite moment in any game. They said you'd fight 1000 Heartless, and they made it work on a PS2. Insane. And now that we're through with all of that, we get a handful of cutscenes to give Sora his motivation to go on all of the second visits. Enough motivation to completely debase himself even. Boy is down bad to see his friends again. And Saïx is being quite a dick about it. Don't worry, no matter what we manage to skip because of the randomizing, there's nothing we can do to skip giving this smarmy nobody what's coming to him. And I'd have it no other way. However, with the second visit of Hollow Bastion behind us, it's time for us to head back in time to Kingdom Hearts 1 and see how far we can go now that we've managed to unlock some progress back there. And now that we're starting the cycle over again, let's get a quick peek at how our progress towards Go mode is going. In total, we have 13 of the total 20 required lucky emblems, which is pretty good this early on. At this rate, the emblems might not be the roadblock that stops us from getting into the Kingdom Hearts 2 endgame. As for Kingdom Hearts 1, we've got 3 of the 7 required answer reports. That puts us only a single report away from unlocking End of the World, and all of its various checks as well. So, at this point, we should be like halfway through both games, right? Then, why is there still so much time on that progress bar down there? Well, anyway, we're back in Kingdom Hearts 1 finally, and we get the opportunity to check out a handful of Blue Trinities. The biggest one to note is from Agrabah, which gives us our Fire spell. And back in Traverse Town, we get a quick run for Kingdom Hearts 2 from turning in puppy rewards and find Thunder from talking to Merlin now that we finally have access to his house. This is actually our second Thunder spell for this game, which means we now have Thundara. We also get a few random things from 100 Acre Wood now that we've got access to it in both games. But little in this initial hunt for leftover checks manages to open up any significant progress. What has given us progress, however, is the access to Hollow Bastion that was unlocked back in Twilight Town. So, how many checks does that get us? Kind of a lot, actually, but not as many as you might think. See, the initial Rising Falls are fine, and even nets us another lucky emblem, but once we lose Donald and Goofy for Beast, we hit some odd locks that halt our progress. For one, even though I have the high jump and glide necessary for us to skip past the first Riku boss fight, the game won't activate the lifts that take us further into the castle, and even gives us the PT treatment on the room behind the entrance hall to make sure we can't sneak up on Riku without opening the front door. So instead, we head through the normal path of progression, open the way forward, and fight our resident bad boy. He's in his darkness phase, it's fine. Sora will beat it out of him eventually, starting with this beating right here. But once that's over and done with, we hit another wall, because while most of the library section is auto-completed the second we enter, the path to the top of the entrance hall is locked behind finding the Theon Volume 6 book, and it isn't here where it should be, because this is a randomizer. And that is already the end of progression on Kingdom Hearts 1. Yep, it went by that fast. Guess we're heading back to the future again. Wait, that's not a Disney franchise? Give it enough time, they'll wind up buying Universal soon enough. Anyway, we're heading back to Kingdom Hearts 2. Well, we already had plenty of opportunities to track down here, so I guess I'll keep going until I get hard-locked for real. Let's start by heading into Space Paranoids, the Tron world. This one isn't exactly check-dense, but it can sometimes be a pretty decent place to power level, especially since I've already got 2 experience boosts. However, I don't exactly have many of the other tools that make the level grind work, so I don't really wind up getting many levels at all. Instead, I do the quick find the block minigame and spend a few minutes unlocking the DTD database and fighting Heartless. The big finds here are Glide, another level of Arrow for Kingdom Hearts 1, and finally the footprints that will let me progress through Wonderland. But otherwise, we fight a pretty okay boss and get out of here quickly. One quick note on the boss, by the way, this guy has various odd moments where his health simply will not go down. So, fighting him without scan likely means that I froze him at inconvenient times, or possibly wasted some of my drive form usage. So, a note for anyone coming to do this fight in the rando, maybe hold off on this final check until you've got scan. Moving on, at this point, I'm itching for a good fight, instead of a quick check. So I use that Way to the Dawn I got last time I was here and visit the world that never was. This means immediately fighting the Roxas fight that didn't exist in the original version of Kingdom Hearts 2. To be honest, this is one of the best additions to Final Mix right here, because Roxas might be the single hardest main progression fight in the game now. Much tougher than Zelda, but not quite on the level of the optional absent silhouette fights. His data fight is probably the hardest in that bunch too, when not accounting for the ways that the gimmicks of the others make their respective fights uniquely difficult. There is also a cheese for this fight that is amazing to pull off, but it had been a while since I'd done this fight legit, so I wanted to try it out. This is actually the closest to death I've come across this whole playthrough, by the way. And it's totally worth it, because as a reward, we get 2 Swords of the Ancestor. This will give us access to Land of Dragons, the Mulan world, for both visits, which is great, because that means I won't have to do Shan Yu skip in order to get all of the checks.
Give me strength. Come on. Heal. Take that. Yeah. This is it. Let's go. Light. Light.
As for the rest of the world that never was, I run through to the Zigbar door, grabbing every check I can on the way, and stop before I get into the fight. If Roxas was that hard, Zigbar has the potential to be a pretty tough wall, on any other difficulty. Still, I wuss out and leave before fighting the boss. For now, we can go ahead and head into the Land of Dragons and start on our first trip through the area. This one has a lot of checks, but they aren't quite as easy to get as places like Disney Castle or Pride Lands. Like, the first 3 chests are quick and give us our first fire spell from Kingdom Hearts 2, which is cool because I like this spell a lot more in this game than in the previous one. But getting everything else means doing a lot of the side quests for Shang. In the meantime, we managed to find a Lucky Emblem, the next level of Thunder, and Trinity Limit, the one for Kingdom Hearts 2. I'd already found the KH1 one and got excited until I realized it was for the first game. It's nowhere near as good there as it is here. Can be a real waste of MP, but MP is much more free to waste in this game. And it has a ton of uses, including some DM skips that I absolutely fail later. Looking at you, Luxord, you limo-driving creep. The skip I don't fail, however, is Shan Yu skip, because I don't attempt it and take him on normal. Maybe I'll show it off on a future run. For now, you're seeing what happens when a character with basically endgame stats fights Shan Yu on standard mode. I basically don't really have to pay attention. He melts immediately. One hilarious effect of the randomizer not really adjusting the character levels on these settings, early game enemies go down in seconds, while later game fights like Roxas can be dominating forces on the battlefield if you go too early. Then again, a good level 1 run or 2 could get you used to that anyway. Still, Shan Yu goes down quick and we pick up a torn page for each game, which sends us to 100 Acre Wood again, because by now I've unlocked Spooky Cave, which is that world's most check-dense area. It doesn't exactly get us much more than some magic, like an updated fire, but it also gives us our first empty bottle, an item in Kingdom Hearts 1 that really confused me when I first picked it up, because the empty bottle is a key item from Destiny Island, which is a world that we skipped in the randomizer. So I had no idea what this was for when I found them here. That revelation doesn't come for a while, actually. After 100 Acre Wood, it's time to head back into Hollow Bastion, because after doing the required content, I left the optional stuff for when I would be strong enough to take it on. That turns out to be now, which starts with me picking up the monochrome from the Gull Wings, somewhat of a vanilla-adjacent pickup. What would that be? Cookies and cream? Well, my favorite flavor aside, we've got some more complex tastes coming up inside of Core, or the Cavern of Remembrance. This is a new area added to Final Mix that I honestly probably don't need to explain at this point, since Final Mix has been available outside of Japan for more than a decade now. Although as someone who played the PS2 version once a year for almost 15 years, it still stands out to me as the new version of the game. Anyway, Core. What this place be? Well, for our purposes today, it's a location with about a dozen checks, as well as some of the most difficult enemies in the entire game. This is another moment where I come pretty close to death, but some clutch drive form activations and some limit uses get me through the toughest encounters here. All except one, that is. On my way through, I pick up another Cure and Gravity from Kingdom Hearts 1, along with a torn page that'll make 100 Acre a hotspot for checks when I get back. And I finally get my first Baby Reflect for Kingdom Hearts 2. Easily the best spell in the game, and a major part of the required toolkit needed to finish up the final fights. We're still only at the baby level of the spell, but that is still enough to get the job done, especially with my current stat line. Once I've gotten all but one check from Core, it's time to leave, because that final check is extremely difficult. It's a gauntlet fight against a ton of nobodies at higher levels than they can be found anywhere else in the game. I'm absolutely not ready for that, so I decide to leave for now and head back out to Land of Dragons. I've been letting that world's final list of checks sit for far too long, and heading back here now is more than worth it. In Land of Dragons 2, we managed to pick up another lucky emblem, so, progress. Always good. As we work on fighting someone who fights surprisingly like Riku, with his weapon and everything. Regardless, we beat up probably Riku and head into the Royal Palace while Xigbar runs away like a coward. Look at him. Look at that goofball duck out of the way of danger. Sidebar, Xigbar is actually my favorite organization member, and this little clip is one of the best reasons why. That and his little back and forth with Sora from back in Hollow Bastion first visit. Love that handsome old man, and not only because I've got a weakness for dudes with eye patches. Anyway, once we get into the throne room, we pick up Second Chance, one of the best abilities in Kingdom Hearts 2, as it will let us survive lethal damage as long as we have more than 1 HP at any given time. And then once we get into the boss fight, which doesn't take long, we finally get Scan. Oh, happy day, we can finally see the health of enemies. Something we're supposed to get at the beginning of each game, but that we're now finally receiving at level 50. The soft cap for these settings of the randomizer, in fact. In this case, soft cap means that no more important checks will be on any levels past 50, meaning there is basically no point in grinding for levels now, unless it's for drive forms or summons, because those are a different leveling system and can still potentially give me important stuff. Well, that was a fruitful visit. Let's do another one, like Twilight Town. This will surely give us something useful. I mean, Stop is kinda useful for Kingdom Hearts 1. I do think that Phantom is still in the logic for these settings, so it'll be nice to have Stop to prep for fighting him. But yeah, otherwise, all we get here is some heartache for all the people that Sora has lost, and a nice reminder that Diz and Ansem kidnapped Roxas. Give him a nice, peaceful life to lull him into compliance, and then thoroughly ripped that nice life away from him. Real cool stuff, guys. Oh, also, it looks like Kairi has been kidnapped. To explain that groveling Sora did earlier for Saïx. Cruel work there, organization guys. Well, I've still got options for Kingdom Hearts 2, but I've picked up a handful of checks and even managed to unlock the remainder of a full level for Kingdom Hearts 1. So let's go back in time and see how the younger Sora's story is going. Not well. It is not going well at all. Between heading to 100 Acre Wood and Wonderland, the most impressive find is negative combo for Kingdom Hearts 2, which is nice for some cheese strats, but since we're on standard difficulty and have Terra and the data battles turned off, that strat will absolutely not be required. So instead, let's go back to Kingdom Hearts 2. Yeah, that's how quick that visit was. It took longer to switch games than it did to actually play before switching again. Crazy. Alright, time to actually do some of those second visits I've been sitting on this whole time. For one, I can head into Twilight Town 3, since I've picked up a couple sea salt ice creams, or at least I still think that's what unlocks this area, but it could also be the Struggle Trophy, which I'm pretty sure I picked up earlier too. Either way, we're heading back into the underground tunnels to pick up Scan for Kingdom Hearts 1 finally, and another Ansem report. Been a while since we've gotten one of those. Wonder how many that is now. As for the manor and the other checks in the area, we get the Beast Claw, which will give us access to Beast Castle, the Beauty and the Beast world. In the meantime, we guess Diz's password, which must be the liver pepper ice cream, the best flavor of all time, and I will not hear any slander on it. Also, let's watch Axel destroy himself to wipe out a group of nobodies that I could have probably taken out with a handful of reflex. No, it's okay, buddy. Your sacrifice was totally warranted. Much sad, such death, one that is about to be as permanent as Goofy's from before. He'll walk it off. So, we now have access to Beast Castle. Guess that feels like the obvious next place to go. Pretty much any first visit is going to have a decent amount of checks. Although they are also generally the longer trips into any world, which can sometimes be a pretty lopsided trade-off. In this case, Beast Castle has a bit of back and forthing before it lets Sora fully explore, with multiple mini-games and mini-bosses in the way. Like the wardrobe minigame, which actually has a cool speed tech once she almost wakes up. Seriously? Another minigame gets nerfed? I mean, no one likes this one, but it at least used to have some cool tech by grabbing the nearby chest during the downtime. Come on, modders, let's learn to love this game a bit. There are more ways to deal with these minigames than simply getting rid of them. Although, I'm speaking as the one person in the world who actually likes the gummy ship, so maybe don't take my advice for this time-wasting stuff. Anyway, the rest of Beast Castle goes pretty well. We free the staff from the dungeon, wake Beast up from his rage, and finally, we get to kill Dark Thorn, the dark ball-looking guy, combined with the beastly boy that almost looks like the boss from the Birth by Sleep Secret episode. This one is less interesting or difficult, but equally is dead now that I'm done with it. But hey, we get another lucky emblem out of it. Good stuff. We're getting close to that final boss access. In fact, let's get ready for that by clearing out the rest of the world that never was. Zigbar goes much easier than I expected at this point, but it isn't without any difficulties. The dude manages to get his DM on me twice. For those not in the know, most bosses, especially the organization members, have a desperation move, or DM, that they will use when low on health. Usually they will use it as soon as they reach a certain damage threshold, meaning that it is very difficult to actually skip the DM entirely. There are a few speedrun strats for getting through them. On Zigbar, that usually means combining double negative combo with horizontal slash and berserk, or spamming Fire-Aga while in final form to burst through the last couple health bars before he DMs. In this case, I don't have either setup equipped, and the fight winds up going on for an extra couple minutes than it needed to be. After him, we get a heartfelt reunion with Kairi. Yes, Sora, she's grown up a bit. The younger version that you keep fantasizing is a relic of the year you missed while sleeping. Very sad, I know. But hey, dry those tears because it turns out Riku's alive, and he's right here. Or cry even harder. No, keep going, I get it. You thought he was dead, and now he's here. It's important to let the people you love know how much you care about them. So go ahead, cry it out. Anyway, we get another lucky emblem and move on to the next couple of boss fights. There's Luxord, who I almost DM skip, but again, it's not even that I'm rusty, it's that I've never really developed the skill entirely in the first place. Still, we muscle through and manage to get a kinda clean kill, if you squint. Saïx, on the other hand, goes a bit better. The biggest problem with him is managing to get him off, get him out of the Berserker phase, but thanks to Once More and Second Chance, we can usually tank our way through his attacks to counter him out of that mode with his own weapon. Then some drive form uses and a duck flare will give us the damage we need to keep him from jumping into that phase too often. Not perfect, but cleaner than Luxord. Saïx also rewards us with access to the Yellow Trinities in Kingdom Hearts 1, which gives us access to a few more checks over there. And now we're blocked again. Because while we've made it through most of the world, we need a second Way to the Dawn in order to make our final approach on Zemnis. Guess we'll go somewhere else? How about we finally do that second Olympus Coliseum visit that we've had since the very beginning? It's actually a pretty quick visit. A couple of fights in the Coliseum, followed by a quick trip up to Hades' room. On the path, however, we do wind up unlocking the Red Trinity. Now, that one's actually kind of huge, since it is what has been stopping us from grabbing a few checks back in Kingdom Hearts 1, including the opposite armor fight. So I definitely should have done this before when I first had access to it. Honestly, I don't really know why I didn't bother until now, because that honestly means I've had access to that Trinity since the very beginning of this run. Anyway, now that I've got 2 Trinities available in Kingdom Hearts 1, I'm actually starting to run out of checks for this game. So I take one more struggle through core as a last-ditch effort to finish up the opportunities I have here before swapping back over. Unfortunately, as difficult as the final core fight is, the reward is basically meaningless. So, guess it's time to head back in time once again and see what I've uncovered over there. In that case, let's talk progress so far. For Kingdom Hearts 2, we've already gotten our 20 lucky emblems, which means we're technically in go mode. Or, to be more specific, we will be once we find the Way to the Dawn that lets us actually reach the final door in the first place. And on the Kingdom Hearts 1 side, we're actually at 5 Ansem reports. That's enough to let us into End of the World, but not enough to open the final door. However, before we hit up the final world, let's run through some of the new checks we can find in other locations, namely the Red Trinities and the opposite armor fight. Considering how low level this Sora is from having barely played Kingdom Hearts 1 at this point in the run, I'm very surprised to find that this boss goes down incredibly fast. My guess is that this has more to do with my settings than anything else. See, normally in the Kingdom Hearts randomizers, either for the first or second game, or even the third apparently, but I've never actually played that game's rando at the time of putting this video together, there are a handful of otherwise useless checks. These are most often filled with synthesis items that don't have much bearing on the randomizer as a whole. However, with my current settings, these have mostly been replaced with either pure stat upgrades or the various up items like power and defense ups. So even at relatively low level, my stats are ridiculously high. This is why so many fights in this run wind up going super easily the further I make it into either game. And at this point, I've found almost 80% of the Kingdom Hearts 2 checks, which is why I'm so strong now. Anyway, all that is to say that I was confident enough to rush my way through End of the World at this point. Considering that it's the only part of Kingdom Hearts 1 I actually have access to, I'll more than take the early trip to the end. Alright, now that I'm here, we've actually got a ton of checks to look for. And there are some fairly important ones, if you wouldn't believe it. For one, we find fire and reflect magic for Kingdom Hearts 2, but more importantly, we find the skull and crossbones while fighting off the leftover behemoths that failed to make it into that 1000 Heartless fight earlier. These will give us access to Port Royal, the Pirates of the Caribbean world, and since I found 2, we'll immediately get access to both visits, which is awesome since this is one of few worlds that actually splits a lot of its checks across the 2 separate visits, with an entire location and half-dozen checks being locked behind the second visit. However, with those highlights out of the way, there's little else to say about the End of the World. While the area can sometimes be fairly difficult, my stats keep Chernobog from being the hard wall he can be during speedruns. The same goes for the final gauntlet before the final door, which doesn't even load in since I don't have enough Ansem reports to make it through. We're close, but still need to head back and start making some other checks, which we now have plenty to hunt through after unlocking Port Royal and also getting the second Beast Claw right at the end of the World. So it's back to the future time. Anyway, back in Kingdom Hearts 2, seriously, the seed really did not like the original game. We have a new location to check, so it's time to become a pirate. Yeah, this is probably one of the most jarring worlds in the whole series. Like, it gets a lot better once the series makes the jump to Unreal Engine 4 in Kingdom Hearts 3, and the developers work to make Sora, Donald, and Goofy fit in with the world better. But for now, we've got Disney cartoons and anime protag boy up next to photo scans of 2003 Orlando Bloom, Keira Knightley, and Jeffrey Rush. An alarming sight for sure, but still a fun world with a unique mechanic for the zombie pirates and their weakness to magic. Honestly, I wish magic would affect regular Heartless like this. Maybe not with every single cast of each spell, but with like a build-up that leads to them getting paralyzed, frozen, or running around while lit on fire. As for the actual meat of the checks in Port Royal, the best find here is an upgrade for fire. Again, this is one of my favorite spells for this game, but Thunder and Blizzard are much more useful in this specific world, since their uniquities against the zombie pirates are so good. However, while we do still have a second visit to worry about after kicking Barbossa's teeth in, we make a quick detour to finish the 100-acre wood for this game. And it's a good thing we do, because we get the final upgrade for Reflect. And another Ansem report. Probably the best luck I've had in 100-acre wood, to be honest. And yeah, now we can head back to Port Royal's second visit, and boom! Green Trinity. I'll forgive anyone who's forgotten how important that is for now. But this will let us access the synthesis shop in Traverse Town, a chest in Agrabah, 2 extra chests in Wonderland, and the latter half of Neverland. Well, we won't visit all of those, you'll see why later. This is the golden ticket I've been looking for since my very first stint in Kingdom Hearts 1. Absolutely huge find. The final Grim Reaper boss also gives us access to our second Proud Fang, as in Pride Rock second visit. Quick note about this boss, by the way. This is one of those fights that I didn't really like when I first played Kingdom Hearts 2, or even for the near decade between original release and the HD remaster. Now though, I love this fight, mostly because I've only recently started to engage with the magic of the series. For context, I never even knew Reflect shot lasers when it properly deflected attacks until at least 2014. You learn new things about your favorite games every day, I swear. Our next 2 worlds, however, aren't exactly exciting from a checking perspective. Some cool fights like Zaldin, who doesn't kill me, but I really fumble the fight in a number of ways. Still one of the toughest fights in this game. Thank goodness Square decided that this fight would get the Mickey rescue back when the game first came out, because High School Proc absolutely needed the help. Yeah, on my first ever fight against this guy, I remember getting saved 3 times in a row before finally taking Zaldin down. Was it earned then? No. Is my victory earned now? Sure. Moving on, we also head to the Pride Lands, and we get a few oddities here. Like the fact that the quality of life for the hyena fight auto-killed 2 of them. Again, Kingdom Hearts fans really do not like their game. Crazy stuff. Wish they'd do something about the final boss of this area though, because this dude loves to stall. It isn't a hard fight, but it's a long one, since there is so much time where the boss is simply incapable of being hit. Nothing good drops though, and we move on. In fact, we move back. So, time for another progress report. Well, not much has changed since the last time, but this seemed like the best time to split the chapters anyway, since we are essentially in the end game and it's time to finally finish this run. The first step is to check out the accessory shop in Traverse Town, where we'll find the very first Green Trinity in the game. This leads us to the synthesis shop, where we finally get an answer to the question that's been burning in your head since I first mentioned it. The empty bottle. Turns out we can turn these in at the synthesis shop and get the other items from Destiny Island. Ooh, tasty seagull eggs. I wonder if Sora actually likes the taste. Oh, it's an unknown disc. So, Space Paranoid, second visit. Neat, but honestly, I was hoping I'd finally found eggs at a good price. Well, whatever. Time to head to Agrabah and grab ourselves the chest in the storage room that's locked behind the Green Trinity. Why? Well, because it holds our 7th Ansem report. Which means, we're in go mode. And it's at this point that I make a bit of a Hail Mary. Let's see if it works out for me. Heading back to the end of the world, we can finally take on Ansem and get through to the end of this half of the run. Although to call Kingdom Hearts 1 half of the overall playthrough is a bit of a misnomer, since this goes by so fast that I actually unintentionally earned the speedrunning achievement. While I have the platinums for the PS3 and PS4 versions of the game, I'd never earned any of the achievements on PC before. As for the Ansem fight itself, it goes alright. Or more specifically, the several phases go alright. Similar to how the Chernobog fight went, my stats here do pretty well to keep Ansem from being too difficult. Oh, and bit of a tip. If you ever have trouble with either the submit attack, which by the way, Ansem, maybe don't shout submit to a child that is not yours depending on what fan theories you believe, you can avoid getting frozen or hurt by Guardian by using Strike Raid in order to become immune to damage for a large portion of that attack phase. You can also avoid the claw swipe and not get possessed at all. Regardless, it's time to fight Ansem again, now that he's taken boat form in the Dark Abyss for some reason. Like, yeah, weird stuff. But we push through the many phases, many phases, get Donald and Goofy back, fight Ansem, who uses a twin blade version of Riku's Soul Eater weapon, neat detail I actually didn't realize for a long time, and get to the ending.
Kingdom Hearts is light.
But why?
Yeah, that's that good stuff right there. I'd like to give my final thoughts on the archipelago now, but we actually haven't quite finished yet.
I know you will!
No. None of that sweetness yet. It's time to head back to the future. Because our Hail Mary has paid off and we now have our second Way to the Dawn. We get this now because once we finished the first game, the archipelago has released every item that was still hidden away behind any checks that I hadn't found or didn't have access to. For example, if I wanted to get the Way to the Dawn the legit way, I'd have needed to fight Kingdom Hearts 1 Uki, which I would have needed the Forget-Me-Not to access, which was in Geppetto's house, which only spawns after beating Monstro, which was in Kingdom Hearts 2's Halloween Town's second visit, the key to which was in the Jungle Slider minigame of Kingdom Hearts 1's Deep Jungle, which was apparently in Hollow Bastion's entrance hall, although I never found it. So I'm not sure if there was a logic softlock here, because further access into Hollow Bastion was locked behind the Theon Volume 6 book, which was also in Deep Jungle, although it's entirely possible that I simply missed that world key somewhere in the entrance hall. Anyway, that long explanation behind us, it's time to fight Xemnas. The initial solo fight against Xemnas is mostly fine, although I get distracted by something outside of the game at the beginning and take a few extra ticks of damage, but it's not really a big deal. To note, at this point, Kingdom Hearts 1 releasing tons of checks out to both games has made this Sora extremely powerful. So a handful of reflects is basically all it takes for me to beat Xemnas down to nothing. And we top the fight off by once again failing to DM skip. Oh no, then I get to do the awesome breakthrough cutscene attack and then kill Xemnas with a quick thunder. Man, that sucks. Seriously. This stuff is so sick. Okay, we're almost done. Time to head into the final fight. Starting with a skyscraper cutting... Wait, what? We're in the core fight already? Seriously, modders must hate Kingdom Hearts 2. No rising building anime cut, no skyscraper riding up the big testicle engines, no magnet spamming to throw bombs into the testicle engines. Like, open the door and right to the worst part of the Xemnas fight against the core. Come on, guys, gimmicks are fun. Live a little. Whatever. Chair Xemnas can't stand against Reflectiga. Both Chair Xemnases. Oh, where was the dragon auto-scroller? Also gone. Time for final Xemnas. Sick fight. No notes. Reflectiga helps me body Xemnas enough for Sora to never even get captured, but I'm rusty enough at this stuff to not be able to dome skip against him. Dome skip here being something that's specifically in the Rando mod that allows players to skip this laser dome move that is currently playing on screen. It usually requires draining Xemnas down to about a bar and a half, then use Sora and Riku's limit attack session in order to stall him from activating the dome until he's dead. In the base game, he'll always survive with 1 HP if he hasn't domed already, but in Rando, you can kill him a lot faster by skipping the cutscene. Of course, that does mean not watching this awesome cutscene as Sora and Riku work together to beat the stuffing out of Xemnas. And to think, in only a few days, Xemnas will go from being so strong that Sora and Riku wear themselves down to the bone taking him down on his own, to being beaten by Sora, Donald, and Goofy, while he's got the backup of the Terranort Heartless and young Xehanort. BT dubs, this is also a quick reminder that Kingdom Hearts 3 is indeed canonically like a few days after the events of Kingdom Hearts 2. And here we are, finally done with both games. So, thoughts on the Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 randomizers and the archipelago? Well, I've got a few thoughts. Getting it running is a bit of a task. There's some necessary information and files currently hosted on the Kingdom Hearts 2 randomizer Discord that are required to get things working. A lot of folks are also consistently there to help anyone having trouble getting the mods up and running. Although for my own experience of getting this working, others had already run into the same issues I ran into, asked for support, and were given publicly posted help. So even the most introverted shut-in can still use the Discord like a type of setup guide, even if it isn't exactly the most organized way to follow the steps. That being said, if I'd bothered to ask even a few questions, I'd probably have gotten this ready in a couple hours, instead of the task of getting this running taking me a few days in total. Since I'm very new to the modding scene also, hence my consistent distancing language I tend to use with the modding community. Maybe one day I'll have some of my own code to make a name for myself among that community, as opposed to my currently touristy association with the brilliant fans putting this stuff together. On that note, the work done among the various communities that have come together to get the archipelago working is amazing. While I believe that this would be much more interesting to tackle as a multiplayer experience, I decided that I'd like for this initial test run to be a solo venture, and it is also incredibly fun when played this way. That being said, for my next randomizer run, I might decide not to split it across multiple games, although I think that might also have a little more to do with me having a different challenge in mind. But hey, that's a story for another time. See you soon. Hey, it's that time again. The end of the video where I invite folks to come check out the Patreon, link in the description, and make good on the rewards for those currently pledged. Patreon members get early access to new content and their names written in the credits at the end of each video. And those who pledge $5 or more get their names read out loud, like our DevBox designers, Genghis Braun, and our DevBox developers, Azul. Thanks for your support, and thanks for watching.